CEO and Executive Director of Familia Vota, and Joe Biden. Please welcome Hector Sanchez, CEO and Executive Director of Familia Vota, and Joe Biden. Please welcome Hector Sanchez, CEO and Executive Director of Familia Vota, and Joe Biden. Please welcome Hector Sanchez, CEO and Executive Director.
Buenas tardes, Las Vegas. Mi familia vota. Buenas tardes, my name is Hector Sanchez. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of Mi Familia Vota. We're a national Latino organization that focuses on protecting and defending our democracy, especially at a time when we're facing so many attacks. We do voter registration, DOTV, voter education, citizenship, voters engagement, etc. We do everything related to protect our democracy. And this is part of the efforts that we're doing to make sure that we keep all the presidential candidates accountable. We launched Prioridades 2020 at the end of the last year, and we sent an invitation to all the presidential candidates to really engage with us in a holistic, strategic way to really understand where all the presidential candidates stand on the issues of Latino and immigrant priorities. And this is one of those examples. This is not an endorsement. This is information that we're gonna use to educate our communities, and we're gonna be mobilizing our voters, and this is critical information because our families need to have the best possible information, and obviously we wanna hear specific commitments from all the presidential candidates. Before I start, let's give a round of applause to this amazing mariachi. What a powerful example of the beauty of our culture. Solo les faltó cantar la de Caminos de Guanajuato, pero a la próxima. Vice President Biden, thank you. You are one of the first candidates. This is our second event, and you were one of the first ones that actually reached out immediately and start engaging to do a big event, and we welcome that with all the presidential candidates. But the reality, Mr. Vice President, is that this happens with all the candidates every time there is an election. We are 20% of the population, and all the presidential candidates always reach out to us when there are elections. And to be fully honest with you, when we see the policy priorities coming from different administrations, we don't see our priorities represented. Why should Latinos?
My priorities represented?
No, the priorities of the candidates in general. This is our conversation. Why should Latinos vote for you, and how are you planning to engage holistically with our community to make sure that if you become president, you are going to be really advancing the priorities of our community too?
Well, for me, look, it's all about family. I've been engaged with the Latino community. Back east, we call it the Hispanic community, for a long, long time. I have a fairly large, in the 2020 census, my little state of Delaware, the fastest growing Hispanic population in the country. And we have a state where almost 19.8% of my state is African American, and over 14% of my state is Hispanic. And so I've been involved in the beginning with relating to everything from civil rights to job opportunities. When I ran for the Senate when I was a 29-year-old kid, I wasn't even old enough to be sworn in when I got elected. I got elected 17 days before I was eligible. And I worked with the Chavez organization because we have a large agricultural population. I fought for decent housing. I fought for opportunities from the very beginning. And there's no reason why you'd know that, because no one knows where Delaware is. I find Westerners don't pay much attention to little states like us back east. And by the way, Dina, thank you for the passport to come in your district. But I think, look, for me, everything in my whole career has been about family. And I mean that sincerely. It's been about family. And coming from a family that was not at all, I have no Hispanic lineage, but coming from a family that understands what it's like to be treated like a second-class citizen. I come from a little town called Scranton, Pennsylvania, and where Irish Catholics didn't have a whole lot of shot when my grandpop were growing up. We were considered sort of the bottom of the rung of the social agenda. And I was always taught by my grandfather at my grandfather's table and at my dad's table that everyone is allowed to be treated with dignity, no matter who you were, no matter where you were from. And that's why when I moved to the state of Delaware, when there were no jobs in Scranton, with my dad had to go looking for work, and we had to go home and live with my grandpop for a year while my dad found a job and was able to get a house to bring us all down to be able to live together again. I was taught that the greatest abuse of all, this is the God's truth, the greatest abuse of all that could be committed was the abuse of power. The abuse of power by government, by wealthy people, by people who had power. And he used to argue that the greatest sin of all, the cardinal sin of all, was for a man to raise his hand to a woman or a child. That's why I wrote the Violence Against Women Act myself. The point is that everything that I've ever been engaged in has been about fighting the abuse of power. And that's why as a kid in my state of Delaware, when I got elected, and you're going to think it doesn't relate, but I believe it does relate, I got very deeply involved in the civil rights movement. As a kid in high school and a kid in college, and I worked in the African American community, and that's why I ran for the Senate. I didn't ever, I never thought I was going to run for public office. That wasn't why I got involved. I got involved to change the way in which people were treated, and it's just been across the board. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But here's the deal. You know. And if we're going to make this country as great as it can be, we have to understand that we have to stop this god-awful appeal to racism, this god-awful appeal. No, it's real. We have to restore the soul of America. America's soul is at risk. This guy comes down an escalator, not much higher than those steps, and what's the first thing he says? He's running because he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. What's he done? The way he's treated Latinos from the day he ran. Everything is about we're being invaded. You know, the words presidents speak matter. They matter, even if a president is like this one, spewing hate. It's been designed to divide us. Divide us. And folks, look, and I'll end, this is more than you wanted to hear, but the reason why you should trust me is because I feel this internal, almost anger about a way in which we're dividing this country, appealing to the prejudice of this country. Look what happened. In 2018, what did he keep showing? Because he knew they were going to lose the off-year elections. He kept showing this horde, he called it, of Latinos invading the United States of America, the invasion from the South, going to take over America. We're going to pollute us. Well, you know what? I'm not saying he's directly responsible, but our children are listening to these things. All children are listening to these things. And it wasn't a far cry when a young man walks into a parking lot and guns down Hispanic Americans in Texas, saying that he was doing it to prevent the invasion of Texas by Hispanics. And look how we treat people now. Look how we talk to people. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, Joey, our children are listening, and our silence is complicity. No. This is not who we are. This is not who we are. And the last thing I'll say to get to the rest of your questions is, look, I learned a long time ago, as a kid in the civil rights movement, I thought when my city in Wilmington, Delaware, is the only city in America occupied by the National Guard since the Civil War. Because I have two political heroes. One was Martin Luther King, the other was Bobby Kennedy. I never knew Cesar Chavez. I knew of. I didn't know him personally. And they fought for people's honor and respect and dignity. They were assassinated my senior year in law school. And I came home, and my city, a big part of it had been burned to the ground in the riots. And I had a job with a fancy law firm. And I quit that job and became a public defender so I could defend the people who were being abused. And I thought things were never, ever going to get better again. And here I was, almost 40 years later to the day, standing in the same place that I interviewed my clients the first time after these raids, on a platform in Wilmington, Delaware, at a train station, waiting for a black man to come and pick me up, coming down from Philadelphia to ride 127 miles to Washington, D.C. to be sworn in as President and Vice President of the United States of America. And I thought, well, things have changed. And I called my three sons up, my three children, I said, my two sons. My one son was the Attorney General of Delaware. He's now deceased, died of cancer after a year in Iraq. My other son, who was heading up at the time the World Food Program, USA, and my daughter, who is a social worker. And I said, don't tell me things can't change. Look what's happening. 40 years ago to the day, I thought blacks and whites would never speak again in Delaware. And here we are. I'm about to be picked up by Barack Obama. But you know what? And I'll end, and I promise I won't give longer answers. But look, folks, I made a mistake. I thought you could defeat hate, but hate only hides. It never goes away. As John Mead, a great friend of mine, says, the history of America is not a fairy tale. And when you give hate oxygen, when you do the things the president has done, making it sound legitimate, it comes back out. And we have to defeat the hate. And the hate relates to treating people honestly.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You touched on the issue of civil rights, and something that is directly related to this issue is the structural exclusion to power from some communities. Latinos are probably the community that has been excluded from access to power. There are structural challenges to make it harder for our community to get access to power. And something that is directly related to this is the composition of the staff of the campaigns. What percentage of Latinos do you have in your campaign, especially at the highest level, and how many Latinos do you have in your inner circle for strategic advice?
Well, if you're willing to come back and help, you'll be one of them, but that will, in fact, make it more difficult. First of all, I have 80 significant Latinos endorsers. I have 3 former cabinet members. This cabinet member right here, Hilda Solis and her family, Ken Salazar, and Federico Pena have all endorsed. But the people who just yesterday, I might add, Eric Garcetti endorsed me and is part of the campaign as a co-chair of the campaign. With regard to, I have 5 members of the CHC, Tony Cardenas, Representative Roybal, Lou Carrera, this gentleman right here from Texas. He came all the way from Texas, but thank you very much. Representative Vela and Vicente Gonzalez. My staff, my deputy campaign manager is Anthony Brunell, who is the manager and CEO. He, in fact, is from Texas, and his family is Mexican-American. Cristobal Alex, who is here, you like him a lot, but don't try to get him a raise, okay? You keep telling me how great he is, but he's pretty great. And senior advisor, and Nevada State Senator Kinsella, a senior advisor here in Nevada. Jennifer Mayaca, Jessica is a California State Director, and Jennifer Sosa is our organizational director. And I can assure you one thing. My cabinet, if I'm elected, and my administration, will look like America. It will look like America.
Let me have a follow-up on that, Mr. Vice President, because I have done this in the past and we haven't seen that level of commitment. If you become president, can you commit right here, right now, to have 4 Latinos and Latinas in your cabinet and have senior advisors at the closest level also appointed to the highest level?
I will not commit to any number of anybody, number one. And I think that's an appropriate thing to ask. But I think you will see there will be a significant number of Latinos in my cabinet. And you'll see Latinx women in my cabinet. And number one. Number two, I guarantee you, there will be senior advisors who are going to be part of the core staff of the White House who are Latino. There's a simple reason for this. It's a simple proposition. By the way, there'll also be there'll be brown and black leaders in my cabinet, and they'll be part of it. They are part of my whole organization. But here's the deal. Look, Latinos make up 25% of every single solitary person in school in America today. The idea that we are not going to have overwhelming representation of Latinos in my cabinet says we're not going to move forward as a country. You are the future. By the way, this isn't a joke. This is the future of the country. We've had massive waves of immigration in the past, with there are large numbers of people from particular parts of the world that have come forward. And now it is Latinos, and a phenomenal increase. And look, it's the reason why we have to invest so much more in what we need to do to bring along the entire population. And by the way, I say this to all white audiences. I say this to the chambers of commerce. I say this to the university, wherever I go, for a simple reason. It's overwhelming the interest of the United States of America that everybody come along. And I mean that. And there's so much we can do. We're in a Title I school right now. Well, you're going to ask me about that stuff later. Anyway, I get a little, but I guarantee you there will be significant representation. And I have one apology to you. I can't speak Spanish. I tried. The single largest event in my state is the Hispanic Ball in my state, in the state of Delaware. And unfortunately, I took all the wrong languages. In high school and college, I took 5 years of French. I tried to stand up and speak French, and I did it pretty well, and they still make fun of you, okay? I made a speech at the ball, this is now 12 years ago, and I butchered the Spanish, and you know what? I got a standing ovation. But I was still embarrassed to try it again, but I need to learn a lot. But really and truly, look, it's a matter of, this is America. You are America. There's no distinction here. And there never has been when we've had these massive increases in, we've gone through these periods in our whole career, our whole history. And we run up against every once in a while the xenophobia that, no, not in my country, we're not going to do this anymore. It never lasts because finally the American people stand up and say, enough, enough, enough. We are who we are because we are a nation of immigrants. That's why we are who we are. We've been able to pick the best of every culture in the world. It takes courage to decide you're going to get up and leave everything you know and come to a different country. I can hear it now. Someone's in Guadalajara now. I got a great idea. Let's sell everything we have, give it to somebody who's going to, we're going to sell everything we have and give it to somebody who's going to smuggle us across the border to a country that says they don't want us. Won't that be fun? Come on. Think of what it takes to come. It takes resilience. It takes optimism. It takes determination. Only people who didn't have a choice are people who come over on ships on chains to the floor, our African American community. That's the original sin. They're the only ones. But look, when my great-grandfather during the potato famine left Ireland, got on a coffin ship in the Irish Sea, wasn't sure he's ever going to make it. It took courage. That's why we're who we are. You are the backbone of the future of this country. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact.
Thank you, Vice President. Just to close the issue of underrepresentation of Latinos, it's critical, Mr. Vice President, that we see a high level of representation, and that's our strong recommendation for you and for all the presidential candidates to have at least 4 Latinos and Latinas in the cabinet, and we're hoping that we can work on it.
Don't try to tell me a number, okay?
We are hoping.
Well, you're not, there may be more than 4.
I would love to see that, Mr. Vice President.
But I'm serious. I'm serious. Look, don't fall into this role where we decide that we're going to make sure everybody is based upon the actual number. By the way, there's going to one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to see Latinx women on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah.
And by the way, the only Latinx on the Supreme Court of the United States, when I had a choice to pick who would swear me in as vice president, I picked her to swear me in. So, and you're not going to get a position in administration. You're too much of a wise guy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We're hoping to see the amazing number of Latinos and Latinas in your amazing administration. Moving to another issue that is you already touched on and is so critical for our nation, and is the issue of immigration. I'm a very proud Mexican immigrant, and I just became citizen 2 years ago.
Thanks for choosing us, man.
I have no doubt, Mr. President, that the American dream is still a reality because of the contributions of immigrants, particularly undocumented immigrants. I work with you a lot, and the President Obama, we met in a number of occasions to work on a lot of issues. We worked together on health, criminal justice reform, minimum wage, issues for trabajadoras. There was one issue, Mr. Vice President, that we strongly disagree all the time during the administration, was the issue of deportation. It's an issue that has been devastating our communities, it's devastating our families. It's a painful issue, separation, exploitation of workers. It increases the vulnerability of our families. What can we expect from you if you become president on the issue of deportations?
You privately know where I was on that, but I'm not going to get into that because I was vice president. Number one, what you can expect is the people who are going to go back to school are the ICE agents. They're going to be re-educated. This is not about deporting anyone. This is not about, it's about keeping families together, not about separating families. And it's about making sure that we don't continue to add to the anxiety of our children in this school and everywhere else, where you have an ICE agent waiting outside of school for mom to pick someone up and she's undocumented, worrying she's going to be taken away. Or when you come out of 10 o'clock mass and you find there's an ICE agent outside, or you find an ICE agent is going to the doctor's office because they know you're going to have to take your child for the physical and take them away. No one will be deported in my administration who hasn't committed a felony, and felony is serious. Look, folks, look, second thing is, I'm going to increase, we tried to raise, as you know, and I will raise to 125,000 the number of refugees able to come under international law, able to come to the United States. Look what's happening in Venezuela. We should be providing temporary protective status. Anyone here in temporary protective status has been here and not able to go back because of danger for 4 years should be able to get in line to be, along with everyone else, the 11 million undocumented on the path to citizenship. Number three, my wife and the congressman just went from Brownsville across across the border to feed Christmas dinner to all those folks who should be in the United States of America waiting to deal with their plea and their argument that they are entitled to come here and under the existing laws that are there. My wife came back with the congressman, and she was devastated. And she talked about what she saw. Children, it happened to be heavy raining time. Children living in mud and squalor. They should be in the United States of America. I would be surging judges to the border to make those early decisions about whether or not someone qualifies. Number two, no more family separation. It makes us, no, I really mean it. Look, the generation in America that is under the most, I spoke to the International Psychiatric Association in London and the American Psychiatric Association as well. You know the generation has the greatest degree of mental health and anxiety problems? Generation Z, people from the ages of 7 to 17. Why? Part of the reason is this anxiety about family separation. Another part is about guns in schools. You know, the greatest concern people have, no matter what their background is, of that generation, according to Hill Harris polling, getting shot in school. And we have a president who has, let's say, NRA own the Oval Office. I'm the only guy that's beaten the NRA nationally. I eliminated assault weapons. I eliminated the ability of them to be able to have more than 10 rounds and background checks. So look, this is about the overall health of America. And by the way, you know, they talk about how much immigrants are costing America. Give me a break. The reason why our Social Security system is still solvent is because of immigration, about people they have jobs. The reason why we're growing, look, we're the only nation in the world that's a major industrial power that is able to have replacement workers. Look what's happening. Look what's happening from China, which is xenophobic. They're not allowing anybody in to fulfill. Japan is xenophobic. All the European countries. We're the only country that has replacement workers. Because why? Because of all of you and your families and all the people who have come here to the United States to make us stronger. That's why we're who we are. We got to start, there's so much more. And by the way, everybody, there's 11 million undocumented. But you know, the significant portion of those people have overstayed their visas. They didn't cross the border. They crossed legally and didn't go home. But guess what? We have to make, how many of you here are dreamers? You're already an American, man. You're already an American. No, I'm not just saying that. I love the way these guys on the right talk about it. I can appear, how old were you when you came? 9
years old.
Now I can say, Mom, leave me at the border. I think it's a crime to cross, man. Leave me here. Don't, come on. Come on, what are we doing? What are we doing? And by the way, every single solitary dreamer is going to be entitled to every educational benefit, including free community college, access to health care. For example, it makes no sense to take a talented person who's a dreamer, who wants to go on to college. I'm doubling the amount of money for Pell Grants from $6,000 to $12,000 a year. And I'm not trying to be nice. It's in our interest that you be able to go. Free community college, not a single cent to be paid, cutting it in half. But what we have to do is invest early. If I only have $1 to invest in education, I invest it before kindergarten, not after. And here's what I do. I was telling your superintendent and principal here, you're a Title I school. I'm going to triple Title I funding, and I can get it done. We can get it done. We're talking about going from $15 to $45 billion a year. You know what that means? It means we'll be able to pay teachers competitive wages and we won't lose teachers in our schools. Number one. Number two, everybody 3, 4, and 5 years old will go to school, not daycare, school. And whatever university in this country has pointed out, that'll increase by over 55%. The ability then to make it all the way through school and go on to college, because that's what it does. It equalizes what people, in fact, come. Look, and the other thing is, the thing I don't like about the way we talk about this, I've been involved in this a long time, is somehow in schools where there's not as much of a tax base and where there's large groups of people who come from low-income backgrounds, well, we don't want to demand too much of them. We're going to have advanced placement in this school, because not a thing you can't do if you're given the shot from the beginning. From the beginning. There's no 3-year-old in America. About 40% of your brains are already developed who cannot learn and cannot succeed. So there's so many things we're able to do. And it drives me nuts that even those people who are xenophobic, they don't understand it's in their interest. It's in their interest. Everybody's better off. Everybody. Rich folks, poor folks, everybody. When in fact you have a better educated public. when you have a better educated community. Anyway,
I
apologize for my passionate, but there's these things we can do.
To that issue, Mr. Vice President, the element of immigration in general is an issue that is, I think we're a hypocritical nation on this issue. Entire sectors of the economy heavily depend on the contributions of undocumented workers, and it's amazing. I can understand why we have an immigration reform done in the past. It's an issue that should be done. You were in the Senate for a very long time. How can you get immigration reform passed in the first 100 days of your administration?
I can't guarantee it in the first 100. It'll be sent in the first 100. I can't guarantee it in the first 100. But I'm the most effective senator you ever know in getting things done. Name me somebody who's gotten more done than me. Name me one.
How can we get it done, Senator?
Okay, you can do it in two ways. I'm sorry, I just get really, guys, look. There's two ways countries get inspired. They get inspired by great leaders who their rhetoric and their leadership raises people up, from Abraham Lincoln to John Kennedy to Barack Obama. There's a second way you do it. The second way you do it is you have a really bad president for a while. Think about it, not a joke. And he makes you realize what is able to be done. Case in point, we worked together on Obamacare. We got it passed without a single Republican vote. But what happened was, right after that, we lost the United States House of Representatives. Everybody, the expert says, because we passed Obamacare. You may remember, I don't remember you in the office at the time, but you may remember my arguing with Barack he should do a fireside chat. And he should stand there and explain to the American people what we had just done. Because I was convinced, because I've done this my whole life, they didn't fully understand what he had just done, we had just done. And we did. And to his credit, he said, this is no time to take a victory lap. We have so much more to do. Everything but locusts had landed on his desk at the time. I'm serious. Remember the situation he was in. And so what happened? We lost the House. But then what happened? Republicans came after Obamacare without people even knowing it was Obamacare. They said, what we're going to do is we're going to do away with this thing called Obamacare. And they didn't realize the reason why, if they had a Down syndrome child, that they're able to have him covered because that pre-existing condition, they could afford to cover him now. They didn't realize if you had a 23-year-old son or daughter, they could still stay on your insurance policy because they would not have a job because the recession was so bad. They couldn't get a job. They didn't realize that over 4 million Latinos had gotten coverage for the first time. They didn't realize any of this. And then what happened? The 2018 election, this last one we had, the off-year election, I went into 24 states, personally, campaigning for over 65 candidates. And I was foolish enough to say, we're going to win 41 seats in the House and take it back. Everybody said, there goes Biden again. We won 41 seats. But here's the deal. You know how we did it? We didn't go after a person's motive, criticizing him with the dirty politics. The reason why you're not with us is because you're in the pocket of big business, or you're a liar, or you're this. We said to the Republican, are you for doing away with Obamacare? Are you doing away with pre-existing conditions coverage? And they're, oh, no, not me, not me, not me. Did you hear any Republicans running last time out on being against Obamacare? And if they did, they got beat. 65 candidates. We won governor seats and the rest. Here's the deal. Now everybody knows. They have seen children snatched from their mother's arms. They've seen people put in cages. They've seen it. They didn't believe it when they were told it, but they've seen it. And as they traveled around the country and around the world, they realized how damaging it is to the United States, how totally contrary it is to who we are as a people. They've seen and heard what this man has said about people of browns and blacks in America. They've seen it, and they go, my God, that's not America. What's happened to these people? Some of you travel abroad. Some of you have been around the world. Have you been in any country as an American visiting in the last year where you haven't had the question, what's happened to America? No, I'm serious. So, folks, the country's ready. And they're ready to believe what we've been saying. that this is totally counterproductive what we're doing. And we have to restore the soul of this country.
And thank you, Mr. Vice President. And as a community, we're ready, and as an organization, we're ready to fully mobilize to make sure that this is a national priority. We're losing the soul of our nation by the devastation of these anti-immigrant policies and issues, so we're ready to engage with you if you become president.